5 signs your gut barrier is damaged. Your gut is lined with a barrier that is one cell thick, one single layer of cells that separates your digestive system and everything that's in it, so like bacteria, toxins, undigested food particles, and your bloodstream on the other side. When that barrier works optimally, it opens and closes effortlessly, leaving small enough gaps for nutrients like vitamins and minerals to pass through. But when your body is exposed to things like glyphosate, toxins, alcohol, ultra-processed foods over a long period of time, those gaps between the cells get bigger and looser, which is essentially called leaky gut. And now every time you eat, even if it's quote-unquote healthy foods, like potatoes, grass-fed beef, nuts, broccoli, whatever, bigger food fragments and their proteins can now pass through that layer and activate your immune system on the other side. Now your immune system, trying to protect you, is attacking those foods because it thinks that they are foreign invaders. As this is happening, low-grade inflammation is being triggered, which can eventually become chronic. And that inflammation can show throughout your entire body in the form of bloating, hives, rashes, breakouts, brain fog, and the list goes on. That is why you're reacting to foods that in an otherwise healthy gut with an intact gut barrier wouldn't cause any flare-ups or trigger you. And once you start to understand that, you will realize that it's not about the food that you're eating, but the state of your gut. But because a damaged gut shows up in so many other ways than you would even expect, like IBS or constipation, most people are walking around right now with a damaged gut barrier without even knowing it. So keep watching if you want to know the 5 signs that your gut barrier is damaged. Sign number 1 is that you gain weight or hold onto puffiness. This one is super frustrating because even if you're eating well, you're exercising, you might even be in a calorie deficit. But as long as your gut is damaged, your weight just won't move. And you will just look and feel puffy and swollen. Or worse, you're unintentionally gaining weight and you can't figure out why. This isn't because you lack discipline or eat too much or move too little. It's actually due to inflammation within your body. As I just said, when your gut barrier is damaged, fragments that aren't supposed to pass through that gut lining have the chance to go through anyways. And with that, bacterial endotoxins called LPS are starting to leak into your bloodstream. And your body's response to that is raising your cortisol. And chronically elevated cortisol levels actually tell your body to store fat, especially around your midsection. This is because evolutionary, the only time your body was really subjected to prolonged periods of stress was when there was war, famine, or another catastrophic disaster. So naturally, your body has learned to store any extra fat or energy as this emergency reserve for times of starvation, for example. On top of that, a leaky gut also leads to water retention, which is the puffiness in your face or those swollen fingers or bloated feeling that isn't really fat. That's your body holding onto water because it's inflamed. And furthermore, inflammation also disrupts insulin signaling, which means your body constantly relies on glucose for energy, so that fast burning fuel instead of the more steady, slow burning fuel that would be accessing your fat stores and using them efficiently. As a result, no amount of cardio or calorie restriction is going to make you lose fat. That's because you're trying to go against survival instinct and your body is literally stuck in that fat storage mode. So it will always choose holding on to fat over accessing, using, and burning it. And this process is almost impossible to override while there's still inflammation going on in your body and your gut is still leaky. I actually experienced this firsthand during my gut cleanse, where within a week I looked much more toned, much more leaned down, less puffy and swollen, because I lost 2 to 3 centimeters around each body part without any changes in my body fat percentage and my muscle mass. Not because I had a ton of fat to lose and actually lost it in that short amount of time, but because I allowed my body to let go of the water retention and the puffiness due to the inflammation going on in my body. Sign number 2 is that your skin won't clear up no matter what you try. If your gut is damaged, like mine was before the gut cleanse, then you might have already tried everything under the sun, from retinol to topical acids and expensive serums, the dermatologist and changing your pillowcase, changing your laundry detergent and your makeup and everything else, yet for some reason that you can't make out, your breakouts keep coming back. Or maybe it's not acne and maybe it's eczema, rosacea, dullness, or that rough, bumpy texture that nothing seems to smooth out. I'd already healed my acne pretty well by supporting my hormones, stripping back my skincare routine, fixing our tap water, and healing my skin barrier prior to the gut cleanse, and I will link the video on that up here. But my skin still never fully cleared up for longer than a couple of consecutive days. I was already at the point where I almost accepted it as my fate and just thought maybe that's just my skin, how it's always going to be, and that I'll never be zit-free. But doing the gut cleanse showed me that that couldn't have been further from the truth, and that the skin is a direct mirror of your gut. There's something called the gut-skin axis, which is essentially a communication pathway between your gut lining and your skin. When your gut barrier is damaged and those inflammatory compounds are leaking into your bloodstream, that inflammation doesn't just stay internal or like local. It moves all over your body and even surfaces on your skin or other parts of your body. This can show up as breakouts, redness, sensitivity, or inflammation that you can literally see. Only when I realized that while I might be able to fix those more severe breakouts through other strategies, the only way to fix the most stubborn and persistent skin issues is by healing the gut and the gut barrier. Within days of this gut cleanse, new breakouts stopped forming and they actually stayed away the entire month. And typically I always, like clockwork, break out right before my period. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that calmed my skin down faster and better than any product I've ever used. So if your skin hasn't responded to anything external, it's almost certainly an internal problem. And my guess is that the gut barrier is the root cause and is where I would look first. Sign number 3 is that you're bloated even when you eat clean. This is the one that most people dismiss as normal, including myself. Like I was eating salads and choosing whole foods and eating clean and avoiding junk food, and yet I was still bloated after almost every single meal. Maybe not massively, but I always thought, dang, I look bloated and puffy or fat or just felt uncomfortable. And for the longest time, I tried to blame the portion size or sitting for too long after the meal had finished or wearing jeans that were too tight. But being bloated after every single meal is not normal, even with tight jeans on in big portions. That was one of the biggest takeaways from my gut cleanse. Like I explained earlier, when your gut is damaged, those tight junctions are open and wider than they should be. That means that food particles that should have been broken down before they pass through are still going through and getting to places that they shouldn't be. Then again, your immune system kicks in, detects them, flags them as foreign invaders, and triggers a localized inflammatory response. It's like when you have a splinter in your finger and the area around it becomes red and inflamed. Just like that, the inflammation inside of your body also causes the same type of swelling. And that swelling is you being bloated. And the frustrating part is that it's not just the ultra-processed food that's causing this. Again, when your barrier is compromised, any foods, even the healthy foods, can trigger that response. Things like lectins in vegetables, phytic acid in nuts, casein in dairy. These are all compounds that are perfectly healthy for most healthy guts, but are all inflammatory for a damaged one. More on this in this video here. And as a result, you still bloat even when you eat clean, because the problem isn't what food you're eating, but the state of your gut. Sign number 4 is you get afternoon energy crashes and you need sugar to function. I was there too, that classic 2 p.m. crash. Every day without fail, I would experience brain fog in the afternoon. My focus would disappear, and the only thing that seemed to get me out of it was sugar. Something sweet, a coffee, a biscuit, a treat, some chocolate, whatever. Just anything to get me through the second half of the day. Most people think this is a sleep problem or maybe a blood sugar problem. And yes, blood sugar still plays a role for sure, but if this is happening to you consistently, even if you sleep well and you've eaten a decent lunch and breakfast, your gut barrier is likely the problem, and here's why. About 90% of your body's serotonin is produced in the gut, not your brain. And serotonin isn't just your happy hormone as it's commonly referred to, but it also regulates your mood, energy, focus, motivation, and cravings, especially those for sweets. So when your gut barrier is compromised and your microbiome is disrupted, serotonin production drops. And with your body's natural cortisol curve already dipping, you hit a wall by early afternoon. And that sugar craving that you get is your body's desperate attempt to get this quick energy hit because it has no longer enough serotonin supply to rely on. With this information, I also want you to understand that you're not undisciplined or lazy when this happens. Your gut is just failing to produce the chemicals that your brain needs to function well. So when you fix your gut, your afternoon crashes will disappear. And that actually happens faster than you think. Going through the gut healing protocol, which I'm going to link you up here, which also includes rhodiola extract, I had insane energy, mental clarity, and focus from super early on. Basically from day 2 or 3, those afternoon crashes were gone. Something I hadn't experienced in years ever since starting uni and working full time. And the last sign is your PMS is brutal and your period cramps are debilitating. My entire adult life, or ever since I got my very first period, I had the worst period cramps. To a point where I would just lay in bed all curled up for hours, panting, crying, and just debilitating pain. Bless my mom, she would always just sit there and hold my hand and squeeze it and bring me hot water bottle and painkillers and food for afterwards. And the crazy part is that there were cycles where it was manageable without painkillers, or at the very least, less severe. However, there was no rhyme or reason to it. It was completely arbitrary. I couldn't identify a single pattern. Sometimes I thought a certain supplement helped. Sometimes I thought it was due to stress or how much alcohol I drank that month or lack thereof. But every time I thought I had figured it out, they would just come back and slap me in the face with even worse cramps until I did the gut cleanse. And listen, for me, it was the cramps. For you, it could be the mood swings or bloating or breaking out around the jawline or cravings or any other PMS symptom or mixture of all of them. Fact is, you've probably been told that this is just part of being a woman and having your period. Maybe you've accepted it. Maybe you've been put on the pill to manage it. I just want you to know that I didn't give up, and neither should you. Severe PMS and painful period cramps are not normal. They are a sign that something is off, and more often than not, that something is your gut and inflammation, which I now know. Here's why. Your gut is directly responsible for clearing excess estrogen from your body. There's a collection of bacteria in your microbiome called estrogen, and its entire job is to metabolize estrogen so that it can get eliminated. But when your gut barrier is damaged and your microbiome is disrupted, and on top of that, your liver is compromised and you need a detox, but that's another topic for another day, the estrogen can't do its job properly. And so that estrogen that should be leaving your body gets reactivated and recirculated into your bloodstream. And this leads to a so-called estrogen dominance, where the excess estrogen is what's causing the PMS. The mood swings, the hormonal acne around your jawline, the water retention, the heavy flow, and the cramps. Because excess estrogen causes your uterine lining to build up thicker than it should, which means more prostaglandins are released when it sheds. And prostaglandins are inflammatory compounds that make your uterus contract. So it does all make sense. More estrogen means more buildup, means more prostaglandins, means more pain. It's not random, it's a direct downstream effect of a gut that cannot clear excess estrogen properly. And there's another layer. Your gut barrier damage is also driving systemic inflammation, and inflammation amplifies pain signaling. So not only are you producing more prostaglandins because of estrogen excess, but your body's pain response to those prostaglandins is much higher because you're inflamed. So it's a nice little double hit. So the biggest motivator for me personally to pull off this whole 30-day gut cleansing healing protocol and not just give up after a few days was to see how it would affect my period and cramps. And I wasn't even so shocked, but just so relieved to find out that after my gut cleanse, and I'd literally started on day 1 of my period, unintentionally, but on the day of my period where I still needed painkillers because it had gotten so bad, and then ended the day before my next period. And for the first time in what seemed like forever, there was nothing, not a single cramp, no pull, no discomfort, all without painkillers and without staying at home the whole day with a hot water bottle and laying on the couch or bed all day. It was even the day of my birthday, and I was actually able to go out for a birthday dinner and go to the dog park and a long walk and even a massage, which if you know, you know, but typically a massage would be the last thing I would want on the first day of my period. Just the thought of like laying flat and all stretched out and someone like massaging your, lower back and sometimes even your tummy, not to mention being all exposed and not like curled up in like 2 blankets on the couch. Like typically, no thank you. But that day, it was no problem. Like, it's just so fascinating what your body can do in 30 days if you just let it be and give it all the building blocks and resources to heal, but other than that, just get out of its way. So I challenge you, if it seems like your PMS is getting worse with age, or your cramps are something you dread every single month, that it's not just your hormones, but your gut barrier that needs support. So if you've been listening to this whole video and you've been ticking off 3, 4, maybe all of those 5 signs, I need you to know something. Your body isn't broken. All it is your gut barrier being damaged. And while that might sound scary, this is good news, because your gut lining actually regenerates every 3 to 5 days, and your microbiome can shift within weeks. So the good news is that all of this is fixable and in a relatively short amount of time. I healed my gut in 14 to 30 days following a very specific gut healing protocol where I removed the foods that were keeping my gut damaged and inflamed, where I added the targeted supplements to actively repair it, and where I did the one thing that nobody seems to talk about that made all the difference, which is to regulate your nervous system, because your gut literally cannot heal if you're stuck in fight or flight. And by doing all those things combined, I got rid of all the symptoms I had, like bloating, breakouts, period cramps, puffiness, brain fog, and the list goes on. I made a full video walking you through the exact protocol step by step, everything I removed, everything I added, the supplements, the daily routine, and exactly how and when to reintroduce foods afterwards so you can find your personal triggers. It's a video I wish I had to begin with, so to save you all the time and energy, everything I did and learned is right here. So go watch that next. I'm not even kidding, but this might be the most important thing you're going to do for your health this year. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you over there. Bye.